My name's Claire Sutherland. I'm the film writer here at the Herald Sun. I've interviewed Heath Ledger 3 times over the 10 years I've been the film writer here. And I have to say that in real life, the impression that you get from Heath Ledger is very different to the one that you might read or hear about in the gossip magazines. He was always portrayed as being quite surly. There was often photographs of him sticking his fingers up at photographers and being quite rude. But I think he was just a very serious, private person who really had trouble with the idea of paparazzi photographers following him around. He'd been sort of portrayed as a thug, and he was really at pains to explain how that situation had arisen. And he was quite contrite about the fact that he'd always, given the one-finger salute to photographers. He said to me, "I've realised now that when I do that, I'm not doing that to a photographer, I'm actually doing that to every person who reads the magazine that photo appears in." So he'd kind of he'd done a lot of soul searching about this kind of thing, but it ended with him leaving this dream home that he'd set up in Sydney and moving to Brooklyn because he just couldn't handle the Sydney paparazzi side of the media. I think he saw interviews as a way to put his side of the story, to kind of almost fix this image that had somehow built up around him. He was also quite open. He told some good stories about his early days in Hollywood, about how upset he was that he felt used by the producers of Moulin Rouge. He thought he was up for the Ewan McGregor role, but he gradually realised after being dragged from one audition to another that in fact they were just using him to find their leading lady. They'd already cast Ewan McGregor in that role, and he talked about how devastating that was as a young actor to realise that. Over the course of the 3 interviews I did with Heath Ledger, he posed for photos for the Herald Sun. The first time was in 1999, where he was promoting a film called 10 Things I Hate About You, which was a teen movie, bit of a takeoff of The Taming of the Shrew with Julia Stiles. It was a big US hit, and he came into our office I think he was 20 years old. And he came into our studio here and posed on top of a ladder. He was always very cooperative with photographers in that situation. He was willing to kind of try different things, and we got a really good shot of him sitting on top of that ladder, sort of representing his career climbing. The next photo shoot we did with him was for Ned Kelly. And that was a more sort of pensive kind of photo of him, a little bit more serious. And then the last time our photographers shot him was for Brokeback Mountain, and he really hammed up for our photographer that day. He had, glasses. He was doing things with his sunglasses and leaning back and leaning forward, and basically within the confines of, I think it was, in that case, it was a hotel room, he really kind of played with the photographer and tried to give them a good shot. It's also a really sad loss for the film industry because he was showing real promise. Brokeback Mountain, his performance in that, which was Oscar nominated, was an absolute powerhouse of a performance. It was subtle and clever, and it really made that movie, and it was just a taste of what he might have been able to do in the future.